Um, yeah, and it is true that I've played, those roles, but you find that each and every role, depending on how it is written, playing Tom Motsepe, Archie was an alpha male character, what did it give me fame? Archie was a strong male character. But, there was, little quirkiness just about him, and also the environment that he was in. And I think all these things differ according to the environment that they're set in. And we look at Tom Motsepe. Tom Motsepe is actually set, in what, being a mining magnate, and also even the, how his world is set up, here he is dabbling between two women, and maybe there are all other side chicks, and it differs with that. And you look at they are never the same, and they differ according to the world that they are set in. I think what really stood out for me, it's actually this. I think the desire to achieve, and I think all characters also, are always written in such a way that, they have got to want something, and what is it that they would do, to achieve that. And I find Tom as very. He will not. He pulls all the stop to get what he wants, and there are no limits to what he can do to get what he wants, and I think certain characters work within certain boundaries, but he basically just wants to tear down the boundaries and just get what he wants. It's not just one time Tom Motsepe. I think it's just stepping into a role, it is always fulfilling, because I've always been fascinated by the human condition and human behavior. Like I said even earlier on, that for me, being an actor is just like being, an empty glass or just a vessel, and I'm like a vehicle that would carry everything that is actually loaded onto it. I think writers do the better, the writers basically build the world for you. And all you've got to do is just look at whether you you do possess the elements that the writers, have actually put on paper. One of the things that I like saying is that, in fact, my first acting lesson, I got it at the age of 15. And my uncle, basically what he did, he broke down the word actor. And he said A stands for action, C stands for creativity, T stands for technique, O stands for observation, R stands for reaction. And I think the most important thing that an actor should do is actually observe life. And you observe life externally and you observe life internally. And all the emotions that writers put on the page are emotions that you have experienced. But the most important thing that as an actor, you have to be aware of all those emotional and psychological experiences. For an ordinary person, they would go through anger, and they're angry, and that is it. But I think for the training of an actor, it's like, when you experience an emotion, you just go, oh wow, so this is how I am when I'm angry. Oh wow, this is how I am when I'm nervous. And you almost like create different folders in yourself, that when those emotions or behaviors are required, you actually pull out of your folder. Fatherhood is a very, I think, important issue, and I think it is something that we, as a black community, are struggling very, very, very badly with, and one of the things that, because I've explored or even looked deep into this thing of fatherhood, I think personally, You know, I, for instance, never grew up raised by my biological father. I was raised by my stepfather. So also my experiences of fatherhood, are kind of varied in that way. And when you realize that I think men go about making babies and not raising them, that becomes a huge problem. And I think it is important, to impress, this need for embodying, I think, fatherhood amongst men, and especially black men. I mean, I can't talk for white men, I'm not living in their environments. But hey, in the black society, I think the black men, we really need to step up, as fathers and as, I think, responsible men, generally. But I think also we still have to deal with, I think, stories that actually make us reflect of where we come from, where we are, and also even defining where we would want to get to. I remember reading about this British actor, one of the great classical British actors, Sir John Gilwood. And one thing, I mean, he was quoted saying that, it takes 25 years, to be an actor, and basically, even now, I mean, as I'm, what I've been almost like 40 years, over 40 years as an actor. But the one thing is you actually learn life through different stages that you go through. I mean, there's a life that I experienced as a 7-year-old. There's a life that I experienced as a 15-year-old. A life that I experienced as a 21-year-old. And all these experiences are different, and you never stop learning. The only time you stop learning is when you're dead,